Hello, welcome to News 24. My name is Tidi Madia. I am sitting here in the office and on the couch with DA leader Mmusi Maimane. We're going to catch up with him and find out how campaigning has been going for the largest opposition party in the country. Good afternoon, Mmusi.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to fellow South Africans.
I want to start with you about the DA's manifesto. I went to your launch. It was wonderfly packed. They shot a wonderful advert. I finally saw it. I thought it was great. You know, you speak about One South Africa for all, time in memoriam. But let's talk about that. I found a few interesting things, and I think I want to start with the borders issue. The DA is consistently being berated over its position on securing the borders. You've spoken about how the vision towards securing the borders, but there's this talk where people are like, yeah, but the DA is xenophobic. I just want you to clarify the position around securing the borders.
First of all, let me start with One South Africa for all, because that vision articulates a South Africa upon which all citizens are able to work together and prosper together. I'm articulating the fact that ultimately we've got to put a job in every home. And along with that, one of the key offers that we've made on the table is not only upholding the rule of law, but securing our borders. Now, it's important that you understand it from that perspective, because I'm a proud African. I do a lot of work with opposition leaders across Africa. We live in a world where we've always encouraged movement of citizens across the world. But no country can actually sustain itself with just a porous border regime. No one can do that, because there are a number of challenges that occur. If you go to any border in South Africa, most of them are 50% staffed, which means they are understaffed woefully. Secondly, you are allowing citizens and non-citizens to move in and out without any controls, which means that there is no proper registration, there's no proper accountability on tax, which puts the system vulnerable to other crimes. It means ultimately people can traffic drugs, they can traffic human beings, all of that occurs. Now, it's parties like us who are center, who have been in government, who have to say, how do we uphold the sense of which we say, firstly, our borders must be better secured, to ensure that one objective is that everybody that comes in must be properly registered, so that I know I can guarantee your rights. That when citizens are within the country, we have an efficient home affairs that can make sure that, and as an adjudication. Because two things then happen in that instance. One, you can encourage a secular flow of immigration. It means as people come into the country, they know they can go out and come back again because their rights are protected. There are proper documentation. Sure. But secondly, it means that the citizenship, you can actually be much more effective at planning and provision of services. So if you look at a community like Tembisa, you discover that 6 out of the 10 babies that are born at the Tembisa clinic are born to non-South Africans. Now, clearly the healthcare system in the country cannot uphold that.
Yes, we hear that all the time, actually, yes.
Clearly. So more than anything, along with our diplomatic efforts in neighboring countries to ensure there's stability in government, we have to ensure that there's a proper adjudication of refugee status, asylum seeking, and visas. It will guarantee everybody's rights, and therefore we know how citizens are going backwards and forwards. So I think it's about ensuring the rule of law, securing our borders, and ensuring that citizens' rights are upheld.
You speak of the 50% staffing at most of the borders when you go to the border posts. But along with that is what the SANDF is saying. If I recall the DA's offering, a lot of it does lean on the role of the SANDF at the borders. 50%, but the SANDF itself is saying we don't have money. So it's about trying to release money. But in a country where money is needed pretty much everywhere, with the economy that we have, what would be the DA's plan, though, at trying to beef up SANDF so that you can have it playing its role, including at the border posts?
Sure. I mean, the average age of most of our troops is 42, which is high.
It's a problem as well.
It's actually a massive challenge. I've always proposed that we need a form upon which we can recruit citizens and recruit. I think our budgeting process is not aligned always to our priorities as it speaks to the manifesto. So, for example, the amount of money we spent on VIP protection, proportionate to border control, we protect politicians better than actually doing the proper work of securing our borders, which is about making sure that citizens are broadly in place. So as I've proposed that one of the key issues of releasing, creating the space for money to be is about ensuring that we cut the size of the cabinet so that you are protecting politicians less and you are allocating resources there. We have to break down some of the state-owned enterprises. This is about achieving the fact that rather than bailing out SAA, we can ask other equity investors in there so that we can deploy resources to a project such as that one. We must diversify what Eskom does so that we can include other types of energy to come on board so that we can take the 23 billion rands bailout that's going there and we can deploy it to the use with citizens. So I think we have operated within a frame that says we need a bloated administration, a big government, the state at the center of it, which is all the ANC's ideology, and actually have not looked at how the transition could take place and what financial resources we could bring on board. I have a vision to say, let's minimize the state. Let's actually use the financial resources to benefit the citizens more than anything. And border control is but one, but also internal policing. When you look at how we must build an honest and a professional police service, we've got to be much clearer about what training we give to our policemen. You know, I think we've lost the war on crime. I think criminals are roaming around freely. We must be able to train our police, give them resources, proper vehicles, make sure that we're much more effective at fighting crime. And I can go through other priority areas that are actually focused on citizens rather than narrowly on a few who are connected, who are on the inside.
The other big calling card in these campaigns for the DA is this jobs in every home.
Yeah.
You know, we hear it. I don't think we all understand it. Can you just break it down for me? How do we get to have that? I mean, in an ideal society, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, well, it first of all articulates a problem. 41% of our households don't have a single income going into them. They depend on welfare remittances and some form of grants. That is a challenge.
Massive one, yeah.
10 million of our citizens are unemployed. 4 out of 10
yes, you must get it right.
citizens cannot find work. This is a challenge. This is the only thing we ought to be talking about in this election. So for us, the first starting point is that we must do everything we can to bring growth in this country. Can't create jobs without growth. And the first is about breaking down some of the state-owned enterprises so that you've got the financial reserve to be able to invest in infrastructure in key areas. We've got to break down the centralization of our economy and say, let the cities play a crucial role. Let's allow for micro-enterprise to come on board, because when cities are at the center, small businesses thrive.
Of course.
Small businesses are able to come into places like in Joburg, where we've put Kupuga centers, where they can come in, be able to get the sort of job opportunities that they need, be able to register on databases so that they can compete more. And in that way, when we stimulate micro-enterprise, targets it in key sectors, I think if we come on board, we want to make sure that in manufacturing, we can reduce corporate tax from the rate that it is at the moment to 15% and give the stimulus to say, hire people, that's what we want you to do, and therefore that must be the crucial focus. I want to introduce a national civilian program.
Yes, I found that very interesting, yes.
You can give people a 1-year program where for 6 months young people can do internship and the second 6 months they can work in other places. These are job initiatives across a broad spectrum, and ultimately when you can do that, and focusing on sectors like agriculture, you can ultimately ensure that you do put a job in every home. So comparatively speaking, when you look at where the DA is in government, already only 29% of households there don't have a job in every home. Because ultimately when your economy is growing and then you literally target certain sectors, you can achieve the dream of making sure that there's a person who's working in every home.
I'll give you that, but the last conversation I want to have around the manifesto is around housing, you know. I remember being at the launch and reading about 150,000 rand vouchers, and I was a little bit shocked, and I spoke to someone and we kind of found it absurd that the DA wants to give people 150,000 rand vouchers. Again, we look back at the economy that we have and you go, how?
Well, firstly, we have an allocated housing budget, right?
Which is never enough.
Of course, it's never enough. But here's the problem with it, is that it gets tied up in bureaucracy. It fails to come and attend to citizens themselves. And because the state, when I talk about the reform of the state is a place where tenders become adjudicated to people who come and build houses at a much more inflated rate. we fail to actually roll out mass housing projects, and we fail to actually say to poor South Africans who are out there, who are living in informal communities, who are actually, they own the title where they are, can't we give them the dignity of being able to build a home for themselves? So rather than taking this housing budget and lumping it and splitting it across provinces and simply saying, you find the best tenderers and then give them the housing, let's rather remove people off the housing list and say, let's take this budget, give you the allocation so that you can use it. The key stimulus around that is that when somebody's got a house, imagine the spin-off in the economy that would emerge in that community, because suddenly the building material has to be purchased from somewhere. You then stimulate the economy so that people actually build their own homes, but also you enhance the businesses along the sector. So it's about taking the housing budget and actually taking a different approach. This idea that we're going to roll out enough tenders and build enough houses is simply unworkable. We need to reform that, and our citizens have been very patient and waiting for a long time, but what we've got to do is then begin to say to ourselves, we've got to rethink this model and make sure that actually we empower citizens to be able to build homes for themselves.